Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you.
Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by NewRelic. Visit newrelic.com/twist and see why thousands of developers worldwide don't deploy without it. And by SnapTerms, online legal protection made simple. Visit snapterms.com and enter the code TWIST for 10% off.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, and this is This Week in Startups, our news roundtable edition. It's Friday, and Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft have released their earnings. There's a lot going on in each company, a bit of a disaster and a bit of great things going on in each company. We're going to talk about that with Sarah Lacy of PandoDaily, Rafat Ali of Skift, and Kieran Colley is going to read the news, and hopefully Tyler Crowley will have an insight. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups. Welcome to the program. If it's your first time here, where the hell have you been? No, seriously, this is This Week in Startups. We talk about startup companies, entrepreneurship, putting a dent in the universe, and every week we tackle two things. On Tuesdays, we do an interview show where I talk to somebody trying to put a dent in the universe, change the world, build a product, doing the struggle of entrepreneurship. And then on Fridays, we do a roundtable news program. Today on the program, Sarah Lacy of PandoDaily is with us. Hey, Sarah, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
You had an eventful week, I see.
Just another day in the hood.
Just another day in the hood. We'll get into it in a minute. And of course, Rafat Ali is with us of Skift. Rafat, how are you?
Hey, Jason. How are you?
Good. And Skift is going well, I take it?
Yes, and you are an investor in the company as well.
I am. I was about to disclose that. Tell everybody, since it's a new brand under 12 months old, I think, what is Skift.com?
So Skift is my second startup. Paid content. Most of the people know me from my previous startup. Skift is a travel intelligence media company, news, information, data services for the world's largest industry, which is travel.
Awesome. So welcome back to the programming, and thanks for coming in. Also, Kieran Colley is with us, the editorial director of Launch, and Tyler Crowley, my partner in crime, is back from Europe to give his insights. But before we get into everything, Sarah, let's just get it out of the way. So a lot of people have been talking about it. Big Beachmint story over the next 2 weeks, last 2 weeks. Let me see if I can recap it correctly, correct anything that I get wrong. I'm going to give the broad strokes for people who are catching up, and then give us what your take on it is. So Beachmint is a Digital Coast, Southern California startup company that does merchandising of products online. They have maybe a half dozen sites that sell things like jewelry and fashion. It's run by two guys, Josh Berman and Diego, and Josh came from MySpace, and Diego had a... Where was he before this? I forgot. Anyway, he's a serial entrepreneur. They raised a bunch of money. They've spent a bunch of money. They have about $20 million left or something like that. PandoDaily writes a story, about 2 weeks ago, saying the company is in trouble, the founders are being ousted, and they're returning the $20 million. The story is eventually is refuted by the folks over at Beachmint. PandoDaily does a correction or update or retraction, and then that's where I think things get messy. Beachmint folks feel it's not a good enough retraction. PandoDaily feels they did enough. And then it gets really interesting. A crisis management lawyer.
Then it gets weird.
Yeah, interesting, weird, fascinating. Diego and the Beachmint folks hire a crisis management person because they feel like they haven't gotten the proper correction. And that person tries to either, depending on who you talk to, strong-arm, threaten, cajole, convince Sarah to do what they consider a proper retraction. And then Sarah comes back and says, I'll do an interview with the founders, but I need the founders to talk to me. And that's where, and then we have all different sides. People like Chamath calling, Sarah Clowntown and being upset about it. And other people like Paul Carr, tons of respected people taking either side of the aisle. Mm-hmm. Sarah, is that an accurate description of what's happened?
I think it's mostly accurate. I mean, what I would emphasize is this was not just a crisis manager. This was Lanny Davis, someone who is known for defending Bill Clinton's sex scandals, someone who is known for defending African dictators who eat their opponents, someone who was defending Penn State in the Sandusky crisis, someone who New York Magazine has said in headline, this is the man you call when you've done something very, very wrong. So I think regardless of really our story, I think it's interesting that I've never before seen a startup refuse to talk to a media site who it was trying to influence and spend this much money on someone who is usually really brought in with the only intention to control and muzzle the media and change the story. And so I think that's sort of like the weird part of all this that kind of freaked everyone out at the beginning of the week. So that's the only part that I would add.
Okay. Now, let's get to brass tacks. You guys have corrected the piece.
Yes.
And you will call it a correction now twice. The original headline was...
Well, 3 times because we changed the headline. So we updated the original piece. We wrote a full second story to call attention to the mistake, explaining our process, explaining why we weren't pulling down the entire story, explaining why we had gone with it and why we thought it was true, and correcting what the founders were saying, which was at the time, the only correction they were making was that this had not happened yet. So we took them at their word. We put that in the story. After this whole thing blew up, we went ahead and changed the headline on the original piece. Only reason I hadn't done it before is, frankly, I didn't want to cover up our mistake. I think it looks a little cowardly when blogs do that, because you do have this ability to come in and change what you wrote where you didn't in the print world. I think corrections are a little different for us.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think we apologized in the update that we've done, and we've said that we still have a lot of big concerns about the health of the company. The company has not disputed any of those other concerns that were in our story. And when it gets to a point where someone's trying to bully or strong arm us into now saying this is a healthy company, that's where, as an editor-in-chief and a journalist, I draw the line. I mean, everyone knows this is a troubled company. Every blog who's even taking pot shots at us has acknowledged this is a troubled company. It gets to a point where if they don't want to talk to us, if they don't care what we think of their business, that is totally their prerogative. But at a point when they're spending tens of thousands of dollars of their investor money to have someone to strong arm us into putting words on our site, I mean, that seems to me they do care what's on our site, and probably they could just pick up the phone when we're calling.
So, in fairness to them, their argument would be, you printed 2 facts that were absolutely incorrect and that did incredible damage to the company. That is their position. That is what many people believe. You said they were firing the founders. You said they were returning the $20 million. Those 2 things have not occurred. Are you sorry for printing 2 facts that are incredibly damaging to that company?
Yes. I said I was sorry the day it happened. I've never said that I wasn't sorry. Look, I'm a founder. I don't want to do damage to anyone's company. We believed it was true. We had very good sources on it.
Okay. And the writer, Michael, who's a great writer, who's done a good job, and I met him, and I think people think he's, an up-and-coming talent. He did not call the company, according to everybody involved.
Well, so
he didn't call the company for a comment. Now, is that a mistake or not?
That is not... Well, first of all, I'm not granting that that's true.
Okay, well, that's what people are saying, so it's a claim.
Well, this is a company of a lot of people.
Well, did you call the CEO and the people in charge?
Did he call Diego? That is a very different statement than did he call the company.
Did he call the company or did he call Diego?
I'm not going to get into who he called at the company. He did not call and get a comment from Diego before. The story was moving very quickly. And unfortunately, we have a habit of when he has called Diego, Diego has either not told him the truth, has stonewalled him, or has gone and leaked up something to another blog. We see this all the time. I saw this all the time with Mike at TechCrunch. I've seen this with Kara at All Things D. As much as we like to think it's journalism 101 and it's very clean, there are many times when you have a hostile source you've dealt with over and over and over again where you don't call them before running a story. It is not as black and white as it's being painted. That having been said, since it's been disputed, we have consistently reached out to them for comment. We have consistently been open to doing an interview with them in any way they see fit. They can't continue to go around screaming, we didn't call them, we didn't call them, we didn't call them, when for now 2 weeks we've been saying we would be happy to speak to you. They've got to have it one way or the other. Now that I've put this out publicly so that someone like Lanny Davis can't keep twisting it, now the rhetoric is, well, why should we have to talk to you? And it's like, okay, well, make up your mind. either we should talk to you or you shouldn't talk to you, but you can't have it both ways. I mean, this is like what someone like Lanny Davis does. They come in and they, I don't know if you remember the movie Chicago, but like the whole tap dance scene that Richard Gere does. I mean, this is what this man does for a living. He tries to take these little technicalities and obscure a broader story. When I talked to Lanny Davis on the phone, he did not deny that our story was directionally right. He did not deny this was a company in trouble. When I tried to ask him questions beyond the two facts that these two events had not happened as of this moment, he said, I'm not getting into any of those things. I don't know anything about the health of the company. I mean, the only two things we've been asked to correct, we corrected immediately. It's
Do you think
bizarre.
you did, I'll tell you my take on it a little bit, is do you think you did, the correction you did with the sort of correction occurring in the 10th paragraph or whatever it was a little passive aggressive and sort of calling Diego a serial liar, and maybe could have been done in a little bit less of an emotional and or confrontational way? Could you have done the correction, the initial one,
better? I don't think it was actually really emotional. I think it was, I mean, I didn't...
Well, calling somebody a liar, a serial liar is kind of...
Well, I didn't call him a serial liar. I mean, don't put words in my mouth.
What did you
Jason.
say?
I said we had issues with his truthfulness before, which we have.
Okay, well, you basically called him a liar then. So you called him a liar.
I didn't call him a serial liar.
Okay,
though.
but a liar.
That's extreme.
Okay.
But look, what I was trying to do. So my responsibility is to my readers. My responsibility is not to Diego.
Right.
So what I was trying to do in that post is explain to our readers our methodology and what had happened and why we weren't pulling the entire post down. And unfortunately, it is material that we've had credibility issues with him before. And by the way, if you actually look at what other blogs wrote that day, many of them said, now we've heard their trouble, there's been some issues with this company before. Other people said that as well, but it doesn't behoove Lanny Davis to go after them.
Okay, Rafat Ali, you've been listening to this conversation. We've done journalism, random acts of journalism together over the years. We worked together at Silicon Valley Reporter, Venture Reporter, and you worked at Inside.com before that, the original one. What is your take on the issue, the issues at hand, and maybe even the specific case, if you can? What's your take?
Yeah, so this will come as a huge surprise to Sarah, but I am on her team on this
I just
one.
want to say I can't hear Rafat at all.
We'll get it.
Okay.
We have had a bit of history ourselves, but here's how I look at it. Look, Beachmint isn't a completely clean company.
Okay, Beachmint isn't a clean company, Rafat says, okay.
There's been enough history there, whether the facts that ended up completely wrong, they cannot deny completely that they're in completely healthy shape. Last year, they did a lot of cleaning up of the company. That's completely that is a fact. That's one. Secondly, the reason I'm on Team Sarah in this case is because the people who sort of do the media startups, they're a very small subset of people. And it's almost like a family. So if somebody then comes and attacks one, we can all disagree among ourselves as family, but then if somebody else comes and then completely discredits somebody in the family, then you have to sort of stand up. So I take that as sort of an approach to how I look at this.
Yeah.
Is that I think too much mud is being smeared by sort of outsiders at companies like hers and others.
Yeah.
That at some point you have to stand up.
Here's the interesting thing. I think those are very good points. Then, story magically appears from Dan Loynes, who's Lyons. Is it Lyons or who is Lyons?
Loynes.
Loynes. Dan's Loynes. No, Dan Lyons.
Because he's lying.
He's the lion. No, so he's he's the ultimate troll of trolls in journalism. Like he's the one guy who's like, as a journalist, literally formed himself into a troll by doing the Steve Jobs blog or whatever. And I couldn't tell in this instance if he was trolling or doing a sort of bashing you and taking the bait from a competitor or from Beachmint, who knows. But then he said, you're running out of money and your company's about to die. So let's clear that up. Are you running out of money? Is your company going to die? And was he trolling, joking? Was he trolling, joking, or what?
I have no idea. I've never known what motivates Dan Lyons. I find him a bizarre guy. The thing that's even so stupid about it is he didn't even do a good job about it. We openly say how much money we've raised on our site. We've raised $3 million. And he said we had burned through $4 million and had $50,000 less in the bank. And I was like, how does that math even work?
Right.
I mean, so I guess this is slightly the difference between me and the founders of Beachmint. When someone says something about my company that's so ridiculously off base, I sort of quickly correct it and move on and laugh about it. Because he said we were going to be out of business this summer. I could get hit by a bus today, and we would not be out of business by this summer. We have plenty of money in the bank, and our revenues are growing. It would be almost inconceivable that we'd be out of business this summer. And so that's a pretty easy thing for me to just put my head down and keep working and disproving. I guess my question for the Beachmint guys would be, why can't they do the?
What was the question? Why can't they?
I guess why can't they do the same? If we were completely off base in our reporting, why can't they just prove us wrong?
All right, so I can answer that. I think I'm ready to give my judgment.
Can I say one other thing, Jason?
It turns into Judge Judy all of a sudden.
And you didn't gavel. I'm really pleased to hear Rafat say what he did, and it's similar to what Kara Swisher said, and Dylan from VentureBeat, and a few other people who've kind of been around media for a long time. I do think as a community, this did start veering into an issue of what is the responsibility of a free press covering the business industry. And it is not our responsibility to be bullied by investors or a company who have millions of dollars at stake, particularly with what we know is a struggling company. It is not our responsibility to cave and throw out good reporting because they're telling us through a hired gun we have to. It is their responsibility to talk to us and be open and convince us our sources are wrong. And I think I was disturbed on, actually, so this is the only thing I did get emotional about this week. I was disturbed on a human level that it was more important for rival blogs and other publications to take the opportunity to slam us versus stepping back and saying, wait a minute, this is actually just a little disturbing that this is okay and that this is what's gone on.
Okay, I'm ready to give my judgment.
Judge Jason enters the courtroom.
I'm ready to give my verdict here. Number one, it's hard to run a startup company. Sarah's a founder. Rafat's a founder. I'm a founder. It's hard. Running a media startup is extremely hard. Getting it right in journalism is hard because you have so many different agendas. It's not a perfect science. And being wrong is part of being a great journalist and correcting yourself. In this case, I think, Beachmint has had trials and tribulations. And I also know the Beachmint guys. I'm friends with Diego. I'm friendly with Josh. More friends with Diego than Josh. So I have a pretty good perspective on both these. In fact, I consider both my friends. And I would say Beachmint could be more upfront in working with the journalist. And then that being said, I think the story could have, the journalist from PandoDaily, Michael, could have perhaps done a better job of talking to the company before, history notwithstanding. That needs to be a checkbox that's done. You have to officially get those checkboxes done, calling the subjects involved in the story. I think that should have been done. That would have actually quelled things down quite a bit, I think, because it would have been right up front, Diego says this is factually not true.
But wasn't this in the context of and Sarah, maybe you know more than most.
Are you interrupting my verdict?
Yeah, I am, but were they probably not in the process of raising money? And wouldn't that change the game?
If Beachmint was?
Yeah.
I don't think they're in the process of raising money because they have over $20 million in the bank.
No, they're trying to raise money.
Okay.
They've been trying to raise money for quite a while.
Right,
They need 50 in order to execute their strategy.
Right, and you need 5, and I need 50. Everybody needs something.
That makes it hard for Diego
we're all
to come,
raising money.
But doesn't that make it hard for Diego to come out and state maybe and address things directly?
So here's the thing. There are probably some issues going on at Beachmint, and all things are on the table at all times at a startup. I can tell you right now that PandoDaily, Inside.com, Beachmint, and every company is all at once running out of money because we're all investing. Therefore, we're all running out of money. We all have, if you have 18 months or 24 months or 36, we are all running out of money. So that is a true statement you can make about any startup if they're doing things correctly because you're supposed to be investing. Yeah. So, and there's always offers too. Any good board is looking at a number of options. Stay the course, pivot, give the money back, sell, reinvest. All those things are always on the table, and a good board is discussing all of those things all the time, or at least considering them. So who knows how this story, Sarah hasn't given her sources, but who knows how this story started. That being said, I think the two key things here that set this off were the not calling of or a not enough thorough job of Michael calling. That would have toned this down 15, 20%. And then I think the correction could have been done better. And I think what happened was, Sarah, you mixed the correction with the overall big picture. If it just had been a correction, clean, tight, and then here's the big picture background. But listen, this is a new, type of situation.
But just to be clear, Jason,
I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback.
I know we don't want to go back and forth here, but like just to be clear, we did correct it up top in the original story and didn't put in a whole lot of editorializing. So we actually did both. So I actually don't think we confused the two.
Well, here's the other thing though. With the headline though, I think the headline has to change or come down significantly, which is eventually what happened. But I know, I ran into the headline, the
Don't
uncorrected.
you feel like that's revisionist history, though?
No, because I'll tell you why. The headlines live in so many places now because of recirculation on blogs. When I did the Beachmint, when I was looking at your site, the headline was on the side in like a feature box or in a related box, and I didn't see the correction. So a casual person reads that, and they just think, okay, this is true. So they never actually click through to see the correction. So I think the headline has to change. Anyway, enough.
I think that's a good point. I mean, but I think that's more of a point of how we run our company going forward. I mean, I think blogs they're very different animals and how you do corrections on them. You know, everyone has their own different process, but you know, we never in any way tried to hide that we made a mistake.
Okay, here we go. Okay, very good. We got it done. And let me just take a moment to thank SnapTerms. If your website doesn't have a proper terms and service and a privacy policy, it could be costing you costly litigation, especially if you make an editorial error or something, let's say. I'm not saying that. No, but you do need to have a terms of service. You do need to protect yourself. SnapTerms is a simple, affordable, and fast way to protect your website with proper terms and privacy policies. We use SnapTerms here at This Weekend, and it's fun, it's easy, and it's affordable. You could spend thousands and thousands of dollars getting your terms of service done, bankrupting your company, and using all that important capital that you have to put towards the product. Instead, go to SnapTerms and get started for only $2.99. When you check out, use the coupon code TWiST and get 10% off your order. And they have more customized solutions if you have a complex business. SnapTerms iPad mini contest winner is Dave Ferrara, and they win the signed iPad mini. So basically, this is the crazy thing the sales department comes up with. I got to sign and ruin this poor guy's iPad mini. Like, this guy doesn't want my signature on
You're doing it black on black. That works.
Yeah, but I'll just say best at Jason. Boom. So I ruined your iPad mini. You can try to take that off with some alcohol. But congratulations to Dave for winning the iPad mini in the SnapTerms contest. Go ahead and thank at SnapTerms. And when you think about, hey, am I protected? Think SnapTerms. Get a SnapTerms for $2.99 instead of adding a zero or a zero and then doubling it, which is what it terms of service costs. If you go to like a big law firm, you're probably spending 5-10 dimes. So save a little bit of money and put that towards your product. Thanks again, SnapTerms. Okay,
Before we move on.
Oh God, we have to move on.
No, but real quickly,
it's a little hot in here.
Isn't there not a good? There's a jewel of a lesson in this last story.
Oh, here we go.
No, I'm not saying it's an insight. What I'm saying is, it's something that Sarah touched on and said very briefly, which is her loyalty first and foremost is to her audience. Right?
Of course.
And I think startups don't always know that about journalists when they're in their dealings with them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's something to keep in mind, but also the relationship between startup founders and journalists in their domain, whatever field they happen to be, in this case it's tech, is something that, people need to keep in mind, and it's, you never know when that relationship can be very helpful, and I'm very helpful.
It's a very clubby space.
Yes.
And a lot of the publications are invested in or have other relationships. All Things D, owned by Rupert Murdoch. They cover Rupert Murdoch. Excel, investor in PandoDaily. Yeah. Mike Arrington has a fund, invests in the startups that they publicize in TechCrunch. It's all very incestuous at times.
Can I just say, to Tyler's point, I mean, I think the other thing that's important to note is, I think there's a lot of founders who have these like really imperious, you're here to do my bidding relationships with journalists or attitude towards journalists. And I think this is like a sign of when that really breaks down. I mean, I think you need to know that there will come a point, whether it's the current startup you're doing now or a future one, where you will need the press and you will need a relationship with the press. And Jason, this is something you've always done well, whether you've been on top or you've been on the bottom. Having someone know, like, look, you can trust me. I'm not going to try to fuck you over if you call me to get confirmation on a story. That's an important relationship to have. Another LA company who's been troubled, who we've covered, a lot, is ShoeDazzle. And, interesting because it's also content commerce, same as Beachmint. Now, there have been many times when we've had a lot of rumors coming out of people close to ShoeDazzle because they've never screwed us over or lied to us. We have a different relationship with them. And I feel like I can call Brian Lee. I feel like I can call Brian's investors. I feel like I can say, hey, is this true? And sometimes they say it's not true. We think it is. And we run with the story anyway, and we have. Sometimes they're able to give us enough evidence that it's not, that we don't. And they haven't liked everything we've written about, but they have come to us in the spirit of, yes, we are going through a troubled time, but this isn't right, or this isn't fair.
At the end of the
when
day,
you come at journalists and say, we aren't going through any troubles at all, we don't know what the hell you're talking about, shut up, that's not conducive to a conversation.
I think being honest and transparent is a key virtue and expectation of founders and CEOs in today's age. And in fact, it makes you more endearing and charming, and people can buy into you as a leader much more. And, you know, the three of us at this table have all worked together for a long time, and Rafat worked with me. I've always tried to be as honest as possible with the people who work for me. I've actually just extended that to the people, to the public. And you can't write any news about me because I write about it myself before anybody gets a chance. So when This Week In went from a network of 20 shows to just me and Kevin, and we sort of said, this isn't a good business, I wrote it first. So then everybody else had to just link to my post. I had the high ground. I think you got to just get out there before everybody. That's my philosophy.
Well, you had your own episode where TechCrunch for 2 years, it seemed, would do. There was like the classic, you got hit kind of hard for a while on TechCrunch.
Well, when Mike doesn't like you anymore, he's going to demolish you. I mean, but not that Sarah can speak to that. Let's move on. This has been This Week in Inside Baseball. 25 minutes of Inside Baseball. Let's talk about Google first. Earnings. Go ahead, Karen.
Earnings this week, we had Google, Microsoft, and Yahoo. Google had $14 billion in revenue, 19% year-over-year increase, but the market wasn't happy with that because it missed their expectations. And also, there was that little thing called the paid clicks. The amount that people are willing to pay has dropped 6% year-over-year, 2%. Since the quarter, so that negatively affected them. Now, Microsoft, of course, came out with a $900 million write-down for the Surface.
Right.
So that sort of negates any kind of, numbers and other things that they wanted to talk about. Everyone's focusing on their
Surface crashing.
Yeah, and still the difficult transition from PC to tablets.
Yep.
And their stock took a huge hit today. They
10%.
were down as much as 12%.
Wow.
And the last time they were hit that hard was April of 2000. That's when they lost over 15% in one day.
Yep. All right. Well, let's just start with Google. Rafat, Google in trouble, not unstoppable. What's your take on Google today?
I think that, clearly the mobile is an issue for them.
Google or Microsoft?
Google. For Google.
Yeah.
In the sense that if the world is becoming multi-screen, which it is, Google has to figure out how it sort of fits in the small screen and how do ads perform in the small screen, and it clearly the form factor will never allow that kind of monetization. It just is not possible. So I guess that's why they're going for some of the big bets that they're trying to make in other things beyond search. Short term, I think the paid click and the other business is going to continue to sort of erode and then sort of stabilize at a certain point. It's up to Google after that whether the other products take off now. With Glass and others, you've been outspoken about all that and a few other things.
Yeah, I think that the click issue is the cost per click is going to go down as the market expands, right? Because when you start a market, you start at the top, right? So they're getting people who want to click for mesothelioma at $100 a click, class action lawsuits, and people who want to sell private jets, and then people who want to sell homes, then people who want to sell cars, then people who want to sell beds, and then people who want to sell oil changes, and then you're getting down to like people who want to sell the air freshener in your car, right? Well, that person can't pay as much per click. So it's just a natural sign that the cost per click goes down. What matters is the number of users and the number of clicks going up. So this is just a little bit of a market confusion because in television, you don't see the CPMs dropping, right? So
well, the medium's not
because
really
it's
evolving, though.
And there's a fixed amount of inventory.
Right.
So I think this is also the stock market getting used to it.
But there's something else, what Rafat's touching on, which is mobile has a lower than regular, and as we shift over, it's got the whole
I don't think that
weighing
means
it
the
down.
base erodes, though,
No,
right?
it's not.
Because I think people are still going to do some stuff there. And actually today I turned on YouTube, and the first thing I saw was a video ad that was a native advertisement, which means it looks exactly like the ad below it. And all there was is that little yellow box that said AD. And it was for Red Bull or something. And it was just Red Bull paying to put one of their content videos up or something. It was some content company, and so I think Google's unstoppable at this point, and it's actually kind of troubling to me, the sort of moving of organic search starts below the fold now on a Google search.
Right.
So what organic search means is the first person who earned their rank. The first 5, 10, 15, 20 clicks are all right above it. And so Sarah, what's your take on Google today? Are they unstoppable?
I think Google is kind of unstoppable, and I have to say, I thought they would start to sort of fade a bit under Larry Page. I thought the combo of Eric Schmidt and Sergey and Larry, where those two could kind of be wild dreamers and Eric could be the guy facing Wall Street, was a great, sort of triumvirate. And I thought that would change, and I've been completely wrong. I think Larry Page has been phenomenal as a CEO. And the thing that, when you look at Microsoft and you look at Google, these are two companies that really need to be investing in the future because, the clock is ticking on their current businesses, and they're both too reliant on a certain business that is no longer the future that they've already dominated. And I think, when you look at Microsoft taking charge-offs and having to admit that Surface hasn't gone well and other aspects haven't gone well, you're seeing that Microsoft just isn't really good at leading the future. And, I think Google is. I think one thing I criticized Google for with Google Plus was trying to retroactively compete with social, which it had missed. I think with Google Glass, it's really trying to skate to where it thinks the puck is going to be versus, continue to just try to take on Apple and devices. And look at the All Things D conference last year, which is where, to me, the sort of smartest collection of people and technology who are really leading big companies go. Every conversation was about Google Glass, and every conversation was about Google Fiber. I mean, I think they're dictating where this industry is going in a way that Apple used to. And, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Wall Street investor because I don't obsess over the moment to moment, but as someone who cares about the, long-term trajectory of these companies and how they're changing the industry, I don't think there's a more exciting company than Google right now.
There isn't, clearly not. And Sarah's 100% correct. They're making big bets, and they're executing on the base. So the smartest thing I ever heard is they put Google X over here and Google here. And what they said was, and this might have been quoted on the show by somebody else, we're going to put the rocket factory away from the widget factory, right? So like their ad business is stronger than ever. What they're trying to do is put a global tax on advertising of 30%. On YouTube, you've heard me talk and rail about the 45%. Some people are getting as little as 10% or 5% that they pay to Google for AdSense, and the number is probably 20-some-odd percent, 26, 27% of those ads. They want to control all advertising on the planet and take a 25% tax. Also in the news was that Google is trying to make TV deals with people. They bought Motorola for the set-top box. So what Google's master plan is, I think, make all these big bets, fiber, balloons to do Wi-Fi over Africa and New Zealand, whatever, and glass. I think these are meant to distract people. I think those are like, hey, here's some shiny objects over here, while they just take over every other vertical and the advertising in every vertical. And if the entertainment industry allows Google into the henhouse, and they let them unbundle television stations, and all they're trying to do is get them to unbundle the TV stations, and then have the subscriber base in some way controlled by Google's software and platform, and then take over the advertising. If you're a media company today, if you're ESPN, if you're MTV and Viacom, if you're CBS, NBC, ABC, all those people, if you get in bed with Google, you will wake up with 30% less revenue. You are going to lose 30% of your revenue. And what that means is you do not want to get in bed with them. It is an absolute disaster for media companies to get involved with Google today. And I know I'm starting to sound like Rupert Murdoch, and people are going to think I'm like Sumner Redstone. Those guys had it right all along. Google is the enemy of media companies. They pretended they were not the enemies of media companies. Media companies exist on a very small margin, 30, 40, 50%. There's no room for Google to come take that big piece of the pie. The pie is not going to get that much bigger. And so I think Google's a very dangerous company right now, run by great people, intelligent people we all like. But it is becoming way too powerful. And I'm not a fan of government intervention. But there is nothing to stop Google now. Nothing.
How does that play out, though? What is Google? Because Google's very intelligent about how it enters itself into a market, right? Like an offer you can't refuse kind of offer, generally. So what's the offer that that ESPN can't refuse?
Maybe they just offer them $1 billion. They just offer them a ton of money and then slowly boil the frog.
But what about the consumer? Is the consumer going to win if all this stuff is available on Google?
I don't, listen, HBO could unbundle and go direct. I mean, just go to HBO.com and buy it. Go to ESPN.com and buy it. The MLB is going direct, right? So I think they're going to try and insert themselves into this process like they have done on, AdSense, and they've done on YouTube. Nick Denton had it right from day one, which was never, ever give your advertising over to a third party. He refused to do third-party ad networks. He refused to do AdSense. I think that's what publishers have to start doing. They have to say,
We refuse to do it for the same reason.
you have to be premium, like Sarah's saying.
Yeah.
Be premium.
We were offered so much money to do ad network deals even before we launched. That was my big lesson from TechCrunch, because TechCrunch could have been such a bigger company if it had not relied on outside ad networks for so long.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Federated Media, I'm friends with John Battelle or whatever, but, he basically, there's only so many companies like Boing Boing that just, have a founder group that just doesn't care to be in business. They just want to get a check every month, right? So for them, the idea of having to run a business at Boing Boing, it's just like, I'm just doing this for fun. So yeah, sure, John, sell the ads or whatever. But, that kind of rep business and Google, it's media companies need to band together and stop enabling Google. And they need to fight Google for better terms. And that's why I put out my statement about YouTube. I'm not afraid of Google. I'm fucking, I cursed already on my own show.
$10, man.
$10. Sarah and I are both in for 10. I'm paying for you, Sarah. You had a rough week on this job. Okay, so let's get to Microsoft. Microsoft. They got demolished. It was for Surface. Who's, Rafat or Sarah, have either of you used the Surface?
I have not, no.
Yeah.
No, I've seen
I
the
don't have
store.
any Microsoft products in my life.
Yeah. So what do you do now if you're Microsoft, Sarah? You come out with a product. Windows, people said, was a great operating system. People actually applauded it. Very well designed, very beautiful. I happen to agree with that. I've used the products. The Surface was considered a beautiful product, incredibly well designed, great, the whole package was pretty great. Despite that, they have to write off $900 million. They can't sell them. Should they triple down, double down on the Surface, or should they give up?
I don't know. I think the problem with Microsoft is a cultural problem. I think they need a new CEO. I think Ballmer's been very good at driving out anyone who might be that new CEO. So there's not an obvious candidate. I think he's sort of an old school sales guy who probably doesn't understand cutting edge consumer technology. So maybe what Microsoft needs to do is own the cloud. Maybe it needs to really focus on business software and, do more of what it did with Yammer, gobble up a bunch of these companies and, start going toe-to-toe with Oracle again and start trying to be, the next cloud enterprise company, because I just don't see it I don't see it going toe-to-toe with Apple. I don't see it going toe-to-toe with Google.
I think it's a pretty insightful comment. In fact, I was hanging out with David Sachs this morning of Yammer, and he said Yammer is crushing it inside of Microsoft. They're selling, fantastically, et cetera. And the big innovation there was self-service, enterprise, bottom-up, lightweight. I mean, everything that you would say Microsoft software traditionally isn't, right?
Yeah.
It's not bottom-up. It's not it's not cheap, I should say. And it's certainly not viral or in the cloud. And so just continuing that. And now with the Microsoft Venture Fund, I think that's a really bold, important one, too, is getting that going. Rafat, what are your thoughts on Microsoft?
I think that I would agree with Sarah on this one. I think the consumer part, for whatever said, and then if they're out of the zeitgeist of the consumer coolness, whatever you want to call that, they're not going to sell, however good the stuff is. So I think that there's still a huge amount of opportunity in the enterprise side, especially outside sort of the Western Hemisphere for Microsoft. There's tons they can do. Africa is one of their fastest growing markets. Focus on that on the business side. Asia, all this other stuff. That's where the money is. And I think the consumer part is should be in a managed decline curve.
Yeah, they need to, I believe, double down on Surface. I'll tell you why. They got almost everything right with the product. Great design, great operating system. They had it was too confusing, this RT versus Pro or whatever. Like, there's two different versions. And so Apple would never release a product and be like, this is the iPad mini, and this is the iPad mini RT. And like, what? Just one product, right? And they should have taken a Kindle Fire approach. Bezos has made the Kindle Fire so loved because he's taking the low end of the market and building up. Android took the low end of the smartphone market, built up, right, to Apple, right? If Apple's taking the high end, take the low end and go up. They should have made it a money-losing or break-even prospect. The Surface at $299 or $249 would have sold incredibly as a competitor to the MacBook Air. and has a perfect balance between tablet and it really is the perfect balance between a tablet and a laptop. If you had to pick only one, I gave you one.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I've
Yeah.
used it basically as a laptop.
Right.
It's pretty good in that way. That little
Yeah.
keyboard thing is a little funky.
Keyboard's a little weird.
But if you need a laptop that's going to be, like next to one, like I would do for the launch festival, I would do a demo on my laptop and I would take notes on the Surface.
Right.
And that actually worked pretty well, and I
Yeah.
didn't have to worry about having an
It's
actual
a
machine.
netbook tablet, so
Yeah.
I think they just got to get the pricing right on it. But the problem with a big company like this, and the problem with being public, is now you can't take another chance, right? You wrote down 900 million; they're going to expect you to stop. All right, let's do a quick ad, and then we'll come back and talk about Yahoo, because that was the big, for me, Yahoo and Tumblr, the big stories here. And who's my second ad? Who's my second partner? NewRelic. Oh, so easy to do NewRelic's ad. NewRelic makes web and mobile. Sorry, you just love when I do ads, right?
I just love your ads.
Sarah's like, can you teach me how to do those ads? Listen, I don't even need to read the
You're
copy
so
here.
cheesy, but it works.
Well, it's what the thing is. I only allow on the program. We didn't have ads for the first 2 years, and then I said, hey, listen, if we're gonna have ads, just make it somebody who I use that product. So we made a list of the 20 products that Tyler and I use, and the top 5 of the top 10 said yes. NewRelic was one of those. Monitor real-time user experience, monitor code level app performance, monitor your server resources. We use it at the launch ticker. We use it at the speaking startups, and we can see, is Ruby slow? Is it the server that's slow? Is it the bandwidth that's slow? How is it working on the browser? And I get all these email alerts. It's affordable, it's fast, it's easy. The company's crushing it up in Seattle. They have 40,000 customers. That's right, 40,000. 40,000 customers, including Skullcandy, Spotify, Nike, Zillow, and Vonage. And me, Jason Calacanis, uses the product and loves it. Developers across the spectrum trust their critical performance to NewRelic. And if you want to, go to newrelic.com/twist, NewRelic, NewRelic.com/twist. There you go. I'm typing it in right now. And you will get this free This Week in Startups t-shirt when you create an account. That's right. You can only get this t-shirt there at This Week in Startups with a samurai sword tee. Very well done. Be a samurai, not a rice picker. That's what I always tell people. Thanks, NewRelic. And go ahead and thank NewRelic on your Twitter account. The super fans of the show always go and thank at NewRelic. And that makes them say, hey, people watch the show, which they do. 100,000 downloads.
Hey, did you see they added Peter Curry as a board member yesterday?
They did. Wow.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Is he? What's his background?
He is. So he was part of the Netscape mafia. He was one of the guys who took Netscape public. And he's also a Twitter board member. And Dick Costolo said he's one of the best people on his board. Everyone I've talked, he was the interim CFO for Facebook for a while. He's one of these behind-the-scenes sort of wizards in Silicon Valley.
That's
It's a
awesome.
big get for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the company's growing, and everybody wants to be on the winning team. That's why I joined the board of Dine, or when I joined the board of something. It's like if you're gonna pick, if you're one of those guys, you're not gonna pick to be on the board of something that's speculative. You wait for it to prove that it's going up, and then you jump on board the train. Let's talk about Yahoo. Talking about a train that's left the station.
Right. So
Stock
this
has
was
doubled since Marissa took over.
Well, about 70%.
Okay.
So Marissa, it was her 1-year anniversary this week. Great time to come out with their
Yep.
quarterly earnings. Now revenue was more or less flat, about down 7% year over year, 1.1 billion. And of course, she and her CFO Ken Goldman did this as a video call, not just over
That
a
was
conference
weird.
call. And they sat at a news desk, and it was kind of funky.
Wait a second, sitting at a news desk, that's my job. What do they all of a sudden, how am I going to report on this if they're doing the reporting themselves?
Indeed. Well, one of the points she made was that their page views were going up, and we have a clip of that.
Okay, here's a clip.
And current sprint is all about execution. Execution around improving products and increasing traffic. So let's start with products and traffic and come back to people in a moment. As you likely know, Yahoo's traffic has been in decline. This slide shows Yahoo's page view traffic in 2012. Setting aside seasonal peaks and valleys, there was a clear downward trend. Watching this chart develop, it became clear that our first milestone would be to get traffic growing again. Ideally.
All right, there you go. So, number one, was that bizarre, Sarah or Rafa, when you saw it? What did you think?
I think it's a little bizarre. I mean, I think she's always been a very telegenic and photogenic person in Silicon Valley, and she was at Google. She was sort of the face of Google for a while, which was wise of them. And in one sense, it was a little bizarre, but in the other sense, that's what she's good at, and it's what people respond to. So, I think you bring all your tools to any job, and that job's hard enough if it makes people feel like she's an inspiring face of the company and makes investors feel a little better. Why not?
See, and this is the double standard. People will criticize her for it, But Steve Jobs was a hell of a showman. So I think the people criticizing it are being sexist.
So we shouldn't be talking about her jazz hands?
Well, I don't think the jazz hands was more about I think jazz hands, Kara Swisher was referring to also like free lunch, free phones.
Right, all the
But there
fun
is
stuff.
also her showmanship. But showmanship is part of it. Rafa, what do you think of Yahoo today and Marissa's job?
Yeah. Versus, sorry, I missed the last
Well,
part.
what do you think of year one of Marissa?
I think that, well, you got to give her, again, it's one of those things we can say all we want, but to be in her chairs is a huge task. Got to give her marks for trying. I don't understand the strategy, but I get the fact that she's trying to do a lot and trying to do a mid-course correction for such a large ship, hugely difficult task. I think she probably has another 2 quarters of the honeymoon period left, even though people are saying it's kind of over. Trying to integrate all the new acquisitions, which seem to be happening once, 2 or 3 a week. I think integrating those would for another 2 quarters, and then sort of figure out after that people will either write her off or say this is working.
Yeah, I think she's got a full 3 years if she can keep the PR train moving, because people don't remember exactly how bad this company was.
It was bad.
It was really bad.
People remember.
Do they?
People remember. And that's the thing. Yeah. And that's the thing is it's like they've brought in 5 CEOs in 3 years. I mean, I think she has 3 years because they don't want to go search again.
Right.
And there's no one better they'll find, period.
Right.
No one is going to come in after her.
Right. Yeah. So this is Yahoo CEO for the next 10 years in your mind?
I mean, if she does it.
Well, this is the last resort is what it is.
Yeah, it could be.
I think it's a thankless job.
But why did she take it then, do you think?
Well, the theory that I've heard is that it was very high profile. I mean, and I think, look, if you can come in and you can turn it around, you're a fucking god.
Right.
You've done something no one has been able to do before.
Right.
Something, I mean, in terms of no consumer web company has pulled off a turnaround with the exception of eBay. So you've done something no one in Silicon Valley has done before. That's pretty alluring.
Yeah.
I think that, and then on the flip side, if she fails, it's like, well, everyone expected Yahoo to fail. Even Marissa couldn't turn it around.
Right.
So I've heard people say she's sort of had, at least a face saving. Either she's a god or, well, she's human like everybody else.
And she gave it a try, right? What's really interesting is, at what point does revenue matter to the investors, et cetera? And my theory on it is there is absolutely very little she can do with the revenue. It's going to continue to decline like this. What she needs is something that comes, so she could maybe stem it, right? So I think that the best case scenario is the downward trend gets stemmed. So if that is the case, that just getting the airplane to not be going down and losing altitude is just to maintain altitude, then she needs to get another plane, right? And or armada, a fleet. And I think Tumblr is the first member of the fleet. All the other acquisitions are just acqui-hires. Just, let's get some new teams, some new blood in here. But what she's really got to do, if she wants to get more lift, she's going to have to cut 2,000 to 3,000 employees. And that's going to be the interesting part. And Mark Andreessen said that's the first thing the person needs to do. Well, guess what? Now we're in year 2. Now she's got the page regrowth. Now she's got, the iPhones in everybody's hands, the free food. Now she's going to have to drop the bomb. And I think that in the next quarter to 6 months, you are going to see, 4-figure layoff. What do you think the chances of that are, Sarah?
I mean, I hope so. I'm not, because I'm trying to be a jerk. I mean, I know those people have jobs and no one wants to see people lose jobs. But I mean, this is now going back how many CEOs, what Yahoo has needed to do.
Yeah.
There's not a single person looking at the financials of this company who doesn't think it's a bloated company.
Right.
And, look, I have questioned why she has not done that so far. But I do think this is a hard company to get your arms around. It is very siloed. Yahoo has this blessing and a curse of being number 2 in a lot of markets. And, if it's you're number 2, it's not great, but it's also not horrible. I mean,
Right.
They didn't have the luxury AOL did of just being so bad at so much they could start fresh.
Right.
And so I think that it is not easy to figure out who to lay off. And I think now she has this buy-in. It's an exciting place people want to go. maybe now she has the capital and sort of the knowledge of what's going on in the company. She got people coming in the company again,
Right.
so she can see what they're actually doing.
Right.
I hope you're right for the sake of this turnaround. Because look, in some senses, she's been like the Candyman of Silicon Valley. I mean, she's just been going around handing out millions to lots of people who've been struggling with good but not great startups for a while. I mean, she's a very popular woman to see coming in the Valley at this point, and I think everyone's rooting for her.
Rafat, what are your thoughts on? Yeah, go ahead.
So I still don't think that Tumblr, I know you're bullish on it. I still don't think it's the transformative acquisition that it needs from a revenue perspective.
Okay.
At the end of the day, unless they can do a transformative acquisition that makes a huge difference on their bottom line in a relatively year to 2 year frame, I don't see how Tumblr will be that engine for them. As a base to build Yahoo around, I don't see that happening. I mean, how's that going to happen?
Well, I do actually have a theory on that. That's a good question, Rafat. I think what they're going to do is get brands to embrace Tumblr as a publishing platform, add video hosting to it, and make it their YouTube competitor. And then once you have your YouTube videos up there or your Tumblr videos as Red Bull or Kate Spade, then they can have you pay to have that video promoted on the Yahoo network. So we'll send you traffic. So just take, this is the new move of what we call native advertising. For folks who don't know, it's just ads that look like content or as good as content. And she did evoke the native advertising in the quarterly call, so clearly she's onto that. So let's get people to, artistically embrace Tumblr, put video on Tumblr, and I think Tumblr will wind up being her YouTube as well. That's just my crazy idea. That's what I would do. Just enable
Jason,
video hosting.
It seems to me the best case scenario for Tumblr is that it's Yahoo's YouTube, but YouTube did not transform Google as a company. I still don't think that's a transformative acquisition.
It will be, though.
And that's the best case scenario.
Sarah, YouTube is getting 1 billion people a month to the site, and they're going to make 5 billion. So while it may not be anywhere near search, it is still 1 billion people, and brands want video, and brands are becoming content people. So where are they putting their content when you're a brand? You're putting it on Tumblr, you're putting it on Twitter, and you're putting it on YouTube, and maybe Facebook. It seems like actually Facebook's the big loser in all of this. I don't know. But I think, don't you think YouTube is going to be material in the coming years?
Well,
I think it'll be material, but is it transforming Google? If paid search was in the tank, would YouTube be enough? Would that acquisition, first couple years in, be enough? I don't think it would. So I think if we're looking at it comparatively and saying best case scenario, Tumblr is Yahoo's YouTube, I don't think that's enough.
Same question, Tyler.
Well, the point of it hasn't been. I'm really surprised at the lack of people talking about the fact that YouTube is now doing subscription channels. And that goes back to your point about reaching out to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they're just testing it right now.
They're testing paid subscriptions on YouTube. It's not working.
Well, some people say it's not. A couple of people says it is.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be one of those things where it will work to certain verticals,
but
education
it has
or
the
whatever.
potential to be a game changer. It needs to be looked at very seriously.
Well, if you put Game of Thrones on there and you charge, $100 a year, it's going to work.
It only takes one mega.
Well, look at Netflix, right?
Peter
Netflix
Jackson
was
says,
a disaster 18 months ago, and now they've got 14 Emmys. Awards. Nominations.
At some point, the content creators are going to get sick of Hollywood. You're going back to your point about Google, right? It's like the media companies need to be careful of Google. The reality is they're already on the Titanic, and they want to get off the SS Hollywood and get onto something, right?
All right, there's not a startup, and this is the name of the show is This Week in Startups. We don't have a startup in the rundown.
Yes,
I'm
we
going to
do.
take we do?
We do.
Who?
We're going to talk about Tumblr porn.
Tumblr is not a startup anymore. It's a big company now. I want to hear, Sarah, Rafat, what are your favorite startups right now? What do you find fascinating? Give me a startup that you
I'll
saw.
tell you what I've been using a lot. So this isn't something new that I've seen, but something I've been using a ton for the first time are some of these quantified health, quantified self, make your life better health apps. And I've always been really bearish on this category because I think you have to build apps for the way we are, not the way we'd like to be. And I think a lot of times people start using these health apps and they get depressed and they stop using them. But I've been trying to lose baby weight, and I've been doing a combo.
It looks like you have. Your face is looking a little thin there, kid.
I know,
Look at that. Looking a little thin, huh? I like it. Did you get work? Is it work or you no work?
37. That's awful.
Well, I come from LA. I mean, people who are 17 are getting work. Kendall Jenner is.
This is San Francisco. No, but I think I've lost about, 13 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, and
So
you're
I'm
tracking
using
it
Jenny
with
Craig,
what?
But I'm also been using the Up Band and also using MyFitnessPal, which is tied in with the APIs of Up. So because the food tracking on Up is kind of shitty, and so I got another app that's better at doing the food tracking, and it's actually like pretty cool and it works well. And I
Wait,
think
what's this brand?
know,
What?
MyFitness app.
MyFitnessPal.
MyFitnessPal, sorry. MyFitnessPal.
I've never even heard of that.
It's a horrible, horrible name. But it's a great app, and you can actually scan barcodes. So I can scan the barcode of what I'm eating,
What?
and it'll put in all the nutritional information and tie it into my Up Band. And so I can see all of my calories going in, calories going out every day. And it's actually really cool, and I've been doing it every day. It's pretty easy to update. And so I think like open APIs in mobile might actually make health apps successful for the first time. I'm still not super bullish. I still think it's a small amount of people who are really data oriented and serious about getting fit that they will keep up with it. But it's been cool, and it's made a big difference in me getting healthy. So.
Yeah, I have to say that's fantastic, and I'm looking at it right now. Look at that. You put your eggs, your bread in, you see your calories, your carbs, and everything.
It's a horrible UI, and I don't care at all about all the sharing stuff. I'm just simply using it to scan in stuff and enter it, and then sucking it back into the Jawbone API. But that's the great stuff, because it's like, where is Up week? It's in counting the food stuff and bringing that information in, because I'm not going to thumb it all in.
Right.
And where's MyFitnessPal week? First of all, it's a horrible name. Second of all, it's a horrible UI, and the sharing stuff is awful.
But it has
I
a
don't
killer
care, 'cause
feature.
I'm just and so it's like it's like chocolate and peanut butter.
Yeah.
It's good.
All right, there you go. Rafat, what is yours? Rafat.
Since I'm biased and I'm focused completely on the travel industry these days, I think Hotel Tonight, an app that I'm sure some of you have used, I think what they've done, this is an app that you download and last minute booking that's been there since the online travel booking started. But I think they've cracked the nut on the use case, the UI, the ease of use of how it's done, and I think they've changed how people look at UI in travel booking on mobile. And so travel booking on mobile for the first time is becoming a sizable business, and it's purely because Hotel Tonight showed the possibility of how to do it. And so I like the company. They may end up being acquired or just be a feature, because I mean all it is last minute booking. But I do think that what they've done is at least change how industry looks at creating UIs for mobile, and that's why I like them.
Yeah, you know what? I had a really Hotel Tonight moment. I was in New York, and instead of having my assistant book a car and a hotel, I got off the plane, got an Uber. Flawless. I'm an investor, full disclosure. And then I did Hotel Tonight, who we had on the program. Click here to see my interview with Hotel Tonight. We'll put an annotation right there at minute 56 in the program. And Ace New York Hotel, $139, which was the hotel I wanted to stay in anyway. Book it at 12:01. I went to the site at 12:01 and done. Amazing. On-demand lifestyle. And then today, Uber is doing ice cream trucks in Los Angeles and some other places.
Everywhere, yeah.
And I'm trying to get an ice
New
cream
York
truck.
today, Skift had a Uber truck come by today.
I tried to get one in LA, so look at that. Did you try to get one at Pando?
No, I think
No.
they would see our order come in, and they would nix it.
Oh yeah, you've been rough on you've been rough on my boy Travis, right? You hate Travis too, right?
I don't hate. Paul hates Travis.
I know Paul really doesn't like Travis. It's crazy.
Does it
but
mean
that's
you're getting
interesting.
I want to say something about Hotel Tonight, because I love Hotel Tonight, and I was actually one of the first people to write about them when I was at TechCrunch. What I love is I think every other UI for booking a hotel is completely broken, because it makes me weed through pages and pages of this bullshit, comparing features, and it's like Sheraton hotels, and we all know what they're like, and like, who cares? I think TripAdvisor is actually awful. Every time I've seen something, I know people love it, but every time I've seen something like written up really well, I'll go stay there, and I have a totally horrible experience. I think all of this is in the eye of the beholder. What I love about Hotel Tonight is they curate, and they only give you a couple, and they fit into a bucket. You're either getting the budget hotel, you're getting the hip hotel, or whatever their luxury or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know what you're getting. You're not getting too many choices. You trust them, and it's better for hotels because not only are they getting rid of that last minute inventory, but they're really starting to get new customers because they're going into this curated filter. I had a New York hotel that I booked on Hotel Tonight, Guildhall in the Financial District, which I never would have stayed in normally. Gorgeous boutique hotel. I now stay there every month when I go to New York. We film dinners there.
Right. So their premise that it introduces you.
Totally
Yes.
because we're introduced by Hotel Tonight.
Exactly. Exactamundo. This is very powerful. Go ahead, Karen, you want to say something? What startup are you enamored by right now? Karen?
Well, I was going to bring up Tindr since I know you did one of your comments this week on the launch ticker about
oh my God, the Tindr. It's
Android
the most,
app.
Let me tell you
It just
something.
came out.
If you're a married 42-year-old man who's 20 pounds overweight, losing his hair, and you do not want to go on Tindr. Let me just say that. It is the most humbling experience. For those of you who do not know what Tindr is, do we have a video of Tindr working or something, or do I have to explain? Okay, you know what we should do? Take a note, producer Gina. We have a full-time producer here from NPR Marketplace. Gina, welcome to the program. Take a note. I'd like to be able to plug my phone in randomly during the show. What Tindr does is you take out your phone. Will you explain it, Karen?
Well,
You're a big Tindr user. You've had great luck on Tindr.
I am not on Tindr.
You're not on Tindr.
It is.
Every married person. I'm not on Tindr.
It's Grindr for straight people. Right?
Grindr for straight people. Very well said. Now nobody knows what Grindr is.
So if you know what Grindr is, it's
Okay, now explain Tindr. Yeah.
so Grindr was a way for gay men to find other gay men near them, and they could, of course, meet them.
Have
They could
coffee.
have coffee. They could have whatever they
Yeah,
wanted with
it was
them.
like, listen, gay guys want to meet, and they want to have a great conversation.
Right.
Everybody knows. I don't mean to be stereotypical, but everybody knows gay men in their life. They're looking to just casually meet somebody and get to know their life story.
And it was something that was not just popular in the U.S. It was popular all over the world. So you could grind everywhere in the world.
So to speak. And when by grind they mean grind coffee, and then have like a grinding like conversation. It's brilliant marketing.
It is.
Grind it out in that like banter of a conversation.
So it's been a question for a while. Why hasn't this worked for straight people? And Tindr seems to have finally figured it out. They're using Facebook as a way to authenticate, and they started with promoting it on college campuses last fall, and it's taken off. And it's kind of fun and flirty for young people.
And what it is that's really interesting because I've seen young people using it now at places. You'll be out with it's really like people are afraid to talk to each other, like you walking up to somebody and talking to them.
They
in a
don't
club,
use phones to talk.
or they don't just go and they don't use phones to talk, but they don't actually go up and talk to somebody and say like, hey, you want to meet my friends? You're a group of girls, we're a group of guys. Want to come over and like interface? What you do is you take out your phone, you like set it to 1 mile, which means they're at the bars right around you, and then you just flip yes or no based on the look of the people. And people don't put pictures of just themselves; they put pictures of themselves with their friends. So I think this is more like, can we get your group of friends to hang out with our group of friends? It's more than, it's not casual hooking up.
Right.
It's, as I was joking before, you flip to the left, you flip to the right, and then you're like, oh hey, I'm hanging out with my friends at this bar. You want to come and have a drink? But it's really become transformative. I mean, this app is, I think it takes over Facebook because Facebook was always there was always this secret use of Facebook is to find out if somebody's single or not, right? In fact, that was why Zuckerberg, or that's one of the legendary stories, is that he created it to find out if girls were single or not so he could know if he could.
Right, and Facebook has been used in other dating apps. This is not the first time it's being used. It's just a different application of it. Now, what's interesting is that the CEO, Sean Rad, told TechCrunch that users have rated over 7 billion profiles. The app has served 100 million matches, and it's adding 1.5 million matches a day and growing.
They added Android.
Yes, they added Android. 15% of the users are outside the United States.
It's an incredible app. It's pretty phenomenal. The other two apps in the startups I'm going to give a shout out to are Sunrise, which is a calendaring app for, just called Sunrise for iPhone. I don't know if it's out for Android yet. And it does really interesting things. When you have a meeting, and you click on it and you have like 4 or 5 people on it, it links to a profile, sort of like Reportive did on the desktop, which I was an investor in, sold to LinkedIn. And what it does is it shows you the LinkedIn, it shows you where they previously worked. And then if you're late for a meeting, you press one button and say, I'm running late, and it sends it to everybody, right? So that Sunrise and TWiST, TWiST.com are the two I use. I use TWiST a lot, like, hey, I'm on my way to the office, I'm between this meeting, and it shows people a map of where you're going. And this sort of calendaring, location stuff, it's almost like round 2 of it, right? There was calendaring apps you could buy back when. But integrating social and location into calendar, whether it's TWiST, like TWiST pulls in your calendar. So when you're in TWiST, you could say just, and I think what will happen is automatically.
It'll ask you. If you wanna
but in the future what will happen is I'll have mean with Sarah and then I have a meeting with Rafat. It will automatically send them, I'm on my way and here I am on the map. So if I know that I'm having a meeting with you, you're trusted, it'll automatically, if I set it, to show you I'm en route. Have you used it? Used TWiST? Sarah?
I haven't. I think it's super interesting, though, and we've been writing a lot about this trend where, all of the sort of central utilities of a phone that were sort of taken for granted in the first generation of apps, like everyone with the first generation of apps were like, things like Instagram or things like, games and, all this kind of extra stuff you could never do before, things like Uber. Now I feel like we're coming back to really remaking what are the central things about a phone and rethinking them. Like, I think Snapchat sort of does that with texting. I think that FourSquare is going to do the same thing with maps. I think there's a lot of interesting examples of this. And frankly, like I think my address book and my maps and all of this stuff does not work as well as I want it to. So I think it's an interesting time in terms of remaking what actually we think a phone is, like let alone Uber doing things that we couldn't have imagined in the world. The things we rely on a phone for, let's make them better.
Rafat, what do you think of the new Google adding Yelp-like functionality, putting Zagat in the new Google Maps, that is? So it seems like Google Maps is now Google Maps plus Zagat. Rafat? We got Rafat?
Sorry, that was me.
No problem.
I was saying, I think they're phasing out Zagat as a separate brand, or they will if they haven't yet, and sort of integrate all the functionalities. Google Maps becomes the sort of local plus direction finder. I think that's kind of where they're going.
What does that mean for Yelp?
That means Yelp searches go down. I think as a mobile app, I mean, it clearly is happening to me as a user here, is you just search for stuff on Google instead of trying to open up Yelp. Google may already be open because you're already using it for the directions to go somewhere. So I think Yelp should be very threatened.
Yeah, and then, okay, keep going. And what else in terms of Google Maps? Because they've added location, they've added the sort of
yeah,
Yelp
they've added,
functionality.
I mean, they've added direction, they've added the navigation capabilities, which I think they will continue to innovate on. They're buying companies to sort of add to car navigation, all kinds of other navigation. I'm guessing if ever Google Glass becomes mainstream, Maps becomes a sort of huge integrated part of it. You'll see that. I think they're going to try and funnel a lot of stuff through Maps. I just think that beyond search, beyond YouTube, Maps is their biggest product. And as much as they can funnel through it, they will.
I think so I agree. Yelp's in trouble with this one because when you start looking for a pizza restaurant, when you're looking for pizza or ice cream on Google Maps as opposed to in Yelp and then putting the address in Google Maps and linking to it, big problem.
I do that all the time.
And now, if you look at Yelp, they had news this week that they bought an open table competitor like Book Seat. So you're going to be able to book seats at a restaurant, your reservations. And did they buy it? And they bought a company that does...
They bought a company called SeatMe.
SeatMe.
Yep.
And then did they announce that they're also, or do I have inside information, that they're doing food delivery?
The food delivery was last week.
Okay, so now Yelp, to counter that, is doing food delivery and booking seats. Sarah, do you think that's enough?
I don't know. I think the one that they all need to be worried about is FourSquare. I think everyone's really underestimating FourSquare and what they're able to do in terms of discovery and showing you things in the neighborhood and having this sort of, this is what your friends think, this is based on what you like. I mean, to me, Zagat is not that helpful. Like, if that's like Google's sort of ace in the hole of editorial on dining, like, I wouldn't be that worried. I think the problem with Yelp is it was relevant, it got too big, and they didn't find a way to, scale the UI while, you were getting thousands and thousands of reviews. I feel like everything averages out to 3 to 4 stars on Yelp, so it's not particularly helpful. I don't know. I think Yelp should have gotten into the open table game a long time ago. I think now it's a little too late. I think FourSquare's the most dynamic player here who's really bringing in something different.
Yeah, FourSquare had an interesting experience. You can now check your friends into the location you're at in FourSquare. They're getting a little more aggressive with that. You can see it here on my computer. So you can say, I'm going to Game of Cones and put in who's, you're going with. And then when I was in New York, you could actually see, I saw Fred Wilson and other people on the map. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go. And then I was like, wait a second, this is getting a little bit creepy. Because
Can you just show up?
Well, I almost did that because I was like, oh, this person's, and then I just realized, like, wait a second, if I just walk in, but you do get that sense like that's okay. Because if you did check in, you're okay with me knowing your location. So I'll ask you, Tyler.
You know what that's like?
What, Tyler? I don't know. What is that like?
That's kind of like a handshake in a hospital.
Jeremy?
No, it's
Wait a second. Hold on. Sarah's confused. I'm confused. It's like a handshake in a hospital. And I'm going to try. I think I'm getting closer to what it is. Sarah, do you have an idea what he means by this?
Jeremy? I don't know. I don't know what a handshake in a hospital is.
Well, it's an insight. So we have to. Part of the game here is when Tyler gives an insight, we have to try to decipher what he actually
Unpack
means.
it. I mean, look, I would think that actually a handshake in a hospital is pretty clean because everyone's always washing their hands and sterilizing. I wouldn't have a problem shaking hands in a hospital.
Right. Okay. So here, I think you nailed it, but you just have to level up one more time, Sarah, because I've been doing
Hard work.
Listen, how do you feel about Tyler being your best friend? I mean, I have to go through this daily. So, what Tyler means is that showing up, having a handshake is normal. It's normal to give people a handshake, just like it's normal to run into somebody in a bar.
right.
However, if you run into somebody in a hospital and you shake their hand, you immediately think maybe this is a little bit odd that we're shaking hands, even though shaking hands is what you do.
That's right.
So it's normal to run into people into a bar, but it's slightly not normal if it happened not serendipitously, but it is serendipitously because it's semi-serendipity.
Right.
It's
Well,
semi-serendipity.
Wow, you guys are like a married couple the way you just decipher that.
Yeah, my wife's like, are you going to France with Tyler again? Am I should be worried about this? That's what it means, right, Tyler?
Yeah, the extra context layer adds, causes you to question the interaction.
Right. Rafat, have you done this?
Handshake at a hospital?
No. Have you walked in on Fred Wilson having lunch?
No, I don't.
On purpose? Have you creeped?
No, New York is FourSquare enough. You just walk into people as it is. You don't need FourSquare for it. I think the FourSquare discovery, the local discovery is a lot more interesting to me than the check-in part of it. And I think that's where they're taking the company. I still question the long-term adoption of it and what's gonna accelerate the adoption. I think that's kind of the key part. And the levers to do that are hard to see at this point, independently for them to do that. That's kind of where I sort of
What
lose
about,
track of it.
I'll end with this with you, what about this food delivery and the Uberification of, we're seeing the Uberification of travel with Hotel Tonight, but we're also seeing this on a restaurant and, booking seats and on a delivery basis. Is that stuff going to fly outside of the major cities? Or is that something only for rich people in New York and San Francisco?
I mean, I think it's certainly the companies are there and trying to do it. I think it'll continue to happen. People want instant gratification, whether they're in cities or not in cities, and the ability to do that in an instant way through the phone in a secure manner without having to entering everything again and again is of universal appeal. So I do think that the Uberification of daily services will continue to happen in U.S. at least. In other countries, there are cultural issues of human interaction and others that still matter. In U.S., we've sort of gone past that.
So you mean in other countries, the idea that not picking up the phone and talking to somebody or interacting with them would be considered just straight up rude? Whereas Americans, we're already rude, so who cares? We're buffoons anyway. It's actually nicer to not
We are
interface with each other.
post-human or whatever, post-human.
It is a very interesting thing that's occurred, Sarah, isn't it, in San Francisco, where everybody's living an on-demand lifestyle, and like everything is like, even employees who like the idea of having a driver take you to work. Like there was one person in the building who had that. Now it's like, well, the guy who does the coffee room and the kitchen guy took a Lyft to work in San Francisco, correct?
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and it's great because like the public transportation is so horrible here. I mean, it's not a surprise a lot of these things came out of people living in San Francisco. I got a pitch the other day from someone who was doing on-demand manicures, and they were like, "Can we send you a free manicure?" And it was like, I mean, at some level, this starts verging on what we saw. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold.
Yeah.
What we saw in the early part of
Well,
the
1.0,
consumer
yeah.
web,
Yeah.
where you had things like Cosmo and Pets.com, where you had this like, great, bring me 5 bags of dog food for a penny. Yes, I love that. Is it sustainable? No.
Right.
And so I'm kind of enjoying all of these while they exist. I'm not sure any of them are going to be sustainable outside of obviously the car ones. I think some of the local courier for some use cases, and maybe a few of the others.
Yeah, it seems to build wild efficiency. So even in the manicure case, it seemed like, the person coming to you to give you a manicure would seem like it's not a big deal, unless there's 100 people who have no money and they know how to give manicures and they can't get a manicure job. Well, then they're going to take the job for $15 because they're up against it. And I think that's what's starting to happen in society is that people are up against it. There's so many people unemployed. There's a shadow unemployment thing going on that you don't see in the numbers. People who are not trying to get work, and they just want to work 2 or 3 days a week and make $300 or $400. They're going to do Lyft. They're going to do manicures to go. They're going to clean your compost bin, like that famous story in the New York Times that somebody did for $5 an hour. It was a very interesting world around employment. Hey, this has been a great episode. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on the show and being so upfront and honest about the situation with Beachmint. We do appreciate that, and you're very courageous for coming on the program. I knew you wouldn't cancel, but good luck in working it out. Listen, what I would my closing statement on the issue is, I like you both, and I hope that you guys can come down, and I'll take you both for a drink, and maybe we try and work this out face to face at some point.
I'm happy to. Anytime they will, I will.
Okay, good. Well, maybe we just built a bridge right there. Drinks on JCal. Maybe I can bring everybody together. My own warped, egocentric mind. I've made the story about myself.
Hey, and I can even drink now since don't have a
Woo!
baby inside me.
Not that Sarah Lacy would be known for having a drink. Hey,
Never.
thank you, NewRelic. Thank you, Rafat from Skift. So everybody check out PandoDaily. Follow Sarah Cuda, C-U-D-A. Rafat, any plugs?
Check out Skift if you travel, or you'll be very surprised how addictive travel news is if you read Skift.
I see. So what you're saying is, even if I'm not in the industry,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Guaranteed, almost guaranteed,
that you're gonna
you
like
will be
it.
addicted to it.
That's interesting. So I'm looking at the site right now.
Oh, wait a second. I hope I have the right stories up.
See, now this is good. Look at this. 8 unexpected Instagram accounts from the travel world. I actually would be interested in following some travel Instagram accounts.
I think it's a fascinating vertical. I love travel news.
Dutch roads to be dotted with tulips and EV charging stations. See, that's interesting to me too, because I'm an EV guy.
Did you see 5 new travel startups
There's a
this
lot
week?
of interesting
Wait, there's
stuff
5 new
happening in the
travel
world of
startups this
travel.
week. I want that. And the future of in-room hotel entertainment. I want that. Look at that. I found 5. You're right. This Skift is interesting. So
That's
everybody
one
goes-
of the things we consistently hear from people. We didn't think we would read travel news, but you guys make it interesting and addictive. And so that's on the consumer side. For the industry, of course, it's...
Let me ask you a question. Why is it that when I go to an expensive hotel, they charge me for the internet? When I go to a cheap hotel, they don't charge me for the internet, and they give me free orange juice and coffee in the morning?
It's a perception issue, which is that they have their premium services that they charge for. I think that's really what it is. They will have all kinds of answers of infrastructure, and it's required, and you need to charge people for it, and
Well, let me just say, it's a douche move. If you're
well,
it is.
Yes,
Sarah,
but
you've
I
done
think
this,
It
right?
drives me insane.
You
I've written about this a lot. The shitty Holiday Inn, free internet, and it's really good internet. The really expensive boutique hotel, $30 a day. It makes absolutely no sense. It's just them
But
trying
I think
to
that actually the
recoup
change
margins
is
that they've
happening,
lost to
though.
Phones.
It is starting to change. I'll tell you, this is I'm at the Ritz. I'm at the Ritz in Maui over the holiday. Right, the kid did okay, and we have
That is such a Jason move, by
Kid
the
did
way.
okay,
to,
right?
be
I feel
dropping
pretty
this
good
in.
about just this is my life. I wake up in the Ritz. I'm like, I'm in Hawaii. I can't believe I can afford a plane ticket to Hawaii. That's how poor I think. I'm in Hawaii at the Ritz. I'm like, and
It's
then
Christmas.
and it's Christmas. And my friends are at the hotel with me, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, we're here. We've worked our whole lives to be here. They're like, we've been here since I was 5. I've been coming here since I was 5. I was like, really? Such an idiot. Anyway, so we're in this thing, right? It's $2,000 a night for a 2-bedroom suite. Right? I got the nanny and this and that. And I want to watch movies on the TV. So I just have the HDMI cable, plug it into my thing. I plug it in. It doesn't work. So I call the guy down. He's like, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? I just want to play a movie. He said, get to use our services. I'm like, you don't have Disney films on here. I want to. So I called the front desk. I'm like, listen, if I'm spending $2,000 a night for 8 nights here, can you let me change the source on my TV? Like a normal, do I have to hack my TV? And the woman's like, well, we probably have to charge you $100 a day to do it. I was like, if you charge me $100 a day to do it, I'm never coming here again. I have 170,000 Twitter followers, and I'm going to point out exactly how horrific my experience here has been. She's like, we'll send it right up, Mr. Calacanis. I hate to pull the Twitter move, but I was like, really?
I know. I had a showdown with Guildhall, my New York hotel that I was just raving about, over a microwave because I'm doing Ginny Crag and I need a microwave. And they were like, we don't have one. We don't have one. You would have to upgrade to a suite. I'm like, look, I stay here every month. You can't go buy a $50 microwave and charge me $10 a day and put it in my room every month.
Or do it for free.
A basic hotel would do that. Like, I've spent so much money with them. It's like, really?
And you're trying to lose weight. Like, who can't empathize with that? This has been a great program. Thank you, Kieran Kalia. Thank you, Tyler Crowley, for your insight. Everybody is very excited about the insight. Make sure we do a deep link to the insight. Kieran, wonderful job reading the news. And producer Gina and Brandis, well done. Flawless episode. We're really leveling up here. You can subscribe to the feed at TWI Startups, at TWI Startups on Twitter, or you can go to youtube.com/thisweekin, or you can go to thisweekend.com. And I am at Jason. We'll see you next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.